As you know by now, the Great Elven Realm ended in a magical catastrophe. However, not everyone in the forest lost their lives or fled. Some elves remained, as you will see. Lords Felix and Galindo encountered one such figure in their next adventure. The High Elves call themselves the Altaloom in their own tongue. Long before they settled in the dark wood and tamed part of it, many other peoples had tried living there and conquering it. With axe and fire, they strove to push back the encroaching trees and persistent gloom. With bow and spear, they hunted for food and fought monsters. But the forest resisted in ways subtle at one time and violent the next. People disappeared. Livestock withered away. The fearful fled. Resolute and unrelenting, the forest closed around each village and strangled it. So you can imagine how many old ruins from other cultures lay scattered about the giant forest. Cottages are mere mounds, and towers are piles of rubble. Vines cover stone buildings, splitting the walls and tearing them down a little more each passing year. Burrows overflow with deadly fungus. All are abandoned and lost to the ages. Some of the Altaloom were not near the centre of the blast when it happened. They were far away in the woods. Others had gone on distant missions or adventures, returning home to find their homes smoking and their families gone. As we know today, most of the refugees moved north into the mountains, taking the abandoned village of Rocksnarl as their own. The ogres who had built it were greatly diminished following the war with our kingdom and had retreated deep into the Black Caves. The Altaloom who didn't flee to Rocksnarl stayed and formed the Chimeric Court, a strange and secretive group who could not be trusted, well, by anyone. The individuals of the Chimeric Court were wild and capricious, fickle in dealings and ferocious when angered. The only group they were known to despise were the Suncallers, scouts and soldiers of the Suncaller Empire, a race of aggressive lizard folk in the Solarian Desert beyond the Ochre Cliffs. What the Suncallers were doing in Redhollow was a mystery. However, the most peculiar set of beings were the Briarclaws. They were seemingly man-sized walking plants with wood skin. No record exists of them prior to the knights encountering them. At times they fought for and against the Chimeric Court, the knights, and even the Suncallers. Besides the usual foes like goblins and spiders, a few legendary beasts prowled the ruins. Shikari are monsters out of nightmares. Six-legged black cats with grasping tentacles sprouting from their shoulders. They hunted by hiding among branches and pouncing down on their prey, though it is said they could appear from nowhere. How fanciful. Interesting note, Shikari is their name as well as the largest of their kind. Shikari the Hollow hungered and could never be sated, even though his hunts never failed to bring down his target. Yes, this will be on the test. Equally strange were enormous winged bears, thought to be part shrike, part badger. These razorbeaks were prodigious eaters, unafraid to challenge even a dragon over a fallen stag. It would take days to recount the dangers of the forest. Let us attend to today's reading. High Elves, haughty and proud, established the Great Elven Realm centuries ago in the dark forest we now call Redhollow. As their kingdom flourished, the forest changed to match their fey nature. It was less dangerous, yet weirder. Just before the fiery calamity, the forest was described by a courtier of a human kingdom in this lesson titled, When You Are a Guest of the Fae.
The Great Elven Realm is not defenseless. It is surrounded by the barbed briars and twisted black trees of the old forest. Those who find and enter the realm with ill intent feel unwelcome. Paths lengthen, footing grows unreliable, and the forest seems less forgiving. Light dims, birds fall silent, and the air grows heavy. It is not wrath, but firm refusal guiding such intruders away or trapping them in confusion until they leave. But for guests like myself, the Great Elven Realm does not announce itself with walls or borders. One simply steps from dark woodland into it and feels the change, as though the world has exhaled. The air grows lighter, cooler, touched with a faint sweetness, like morning dew on wildflowers. Sound softens rather than fades. Birdsong carries with perfect clarity, and even footsteps seem to tread with gentler intent. The forest is dominated by tall trees, whose trunks rise straight and graceful, their leaves shimmering silver green in the light. These leaves never seem to fall all at once. Instead, they drift down, slowly, lazily, catching light as they descend, carpeting the forest floor in a soft, luminous mosaic. The ground itself is clean and open, free of choking undergrowth, allowing easy passage without ever feeling tamed. Here, light behaves like a living thing. Sunbeams filter through the canopy in long, slanted ribbons, warm but never harsh, illuminating motes of golden dust that float perpetually in the air. At twilight, the forest does not darken so much as deepen. Colors become richer, shadows softer, and the silver leaves began to glow faintly, reflecting starlight even before the stars appear. Time moves differently here. Days seem unhurried, flowing together like a gentle stream, while moments of peace stretch long and full. Weariness lifts from the body, and old aches ease as if the forest itself is tending to them. Hunger and thirst still exist, but they are gentle reminders rather than pressing needs. Travelers often realize only later how long they have stayed. Water is abundant and pure. Clear streams wind through the trees, their beds lined with smooth white stones. The water sings as it moves, a quiet music that blends with the forest's breath. Drinking from these streams leaves one refreshed and clear-minded, as though worries have been rinsed away. The sylvan inhabitants are seen when they wish to be. When they appear, it is without surprise or fear. Figures moving lightly among the trees, clothed in colors that echo leaf, bark, and sky. Their voices are calm, measured, and musical, carrying a deep sense of pride. They treat the forest not as a possession, but as a companion, tending to it with care so subtle it is easy to mistake for natural order. There are places within the forest that feel especially sacred. Wide glades where the canopy opens to the sky, stone circles half sunk into the earth, and terraces grown directly from living trees. In these places, thoughts grow quiet and emotions settle. Guests who enter find clarity about burdens they have carried for years, emerging with a renewed sense of purpose or peace. At night, the forest becomes a place of profound beauty. Soft silver light pools beneath the trees. Fireflies drift like fallen constellations, and the forest hums with a quiet, harmonious energy. Sleep comes easy here, and dreams are often filled with memory, hope, or long-forgotten joys. Those who leave often do so reluctantly. The outside world feels louder, sharper, and more hurried by comparison. Yet the forest leaves a mark. Not a wound, but a blessing. Guests carry its calm with them for a time, finding resilience in hardship and beauty in small things. And some, when life grows too heavy, feel a pull, a quiet longing for silver leaves, gentle light, and a place where the world remembers how to be kind. The area was filled with statues, carved heads and hands. They might be considered fine art by humans, but elves would recognize them as practice works by students. A hooded figure traced his hand over the worn stones at the center of the area. Beast-headed humanoids, armed with hacking weapons and hunting bows, skulked in the far undergrowth. Their barks, growls, and wicked cackles revealed them to be gnolls. No one left behind in a battle with gnolls would ever be seen again, except as gnawed bones around a campfire. Felix and Tempest raced towards the oncoming gnolls, while Rook explored the area and found a giant's fingerbone, carved with tiny runes of strength. El Comodin and Alfonso slunk off in search of treasure too. Galindo, ever the gambler, approached the hooded figure. Valentin stayed close by. Using his focus talent, Galindo offered the forest dweller a gift of a gold leaf found earlier in their expedition, in an attempt to demonstrate friendship. The figure took off his cloak and revealed himself as the elven crown prince Tavish, leader of the Chimeric court. Despite Galindo's positive impression, the prince was not happy at being disturbed. A gnoll archer fired at Felix, but the arrow went wide. The other beastman sped towards the heroes. Dankworth took a moment to explore and found a sunny wool fragment, good for keeping nimble fingers warm on a winter's day.
Is there more of this?
Prince Tavish scorned Sir Galindo's offer for dialogue and waved him away, continuing to contemplate the broken statuary. A gnoll and his hyena, hot on the trail of the heroes, arrived from the south and blocked off the exit. This felt familiar. Felix charged a Gnoll fighter, but came out the worst, his roll with the punch's ability reducing the damage.
Challenge my honor?
Tempest launched himself at the same Gnoll, who kicked the Warhound away with a hobnailed boot. Galindo investigated a purple barbed bracken and was peppered with darts as he approached, wounding him badly. He took revenge and hacked the plant to pieces. "So yellow is safe, purple is dangerous. Noted," he said. A Gnoll archer took aim at Rook and missed. A Gnoll fighter thought he had surprised Felix, who was already in combat, but was killed by the knight's frenzied attack. The other Gnoll also failed in his attack on Felix, and took heavy damage thanks to Felix's Hand of Fate. The Gnoll sergeant charged Galindo and inflicted a heavy blow that almost downed him then and there. Another Gnoll joined the melee and downed Galindo with a fast slash. It looked like another dangerous mission.
Galindo!
Felix worried about his comrade, an ally through many battles, but knew Galindo to be a survivor. Rook advanced and shot at the Gnoll sergeant, but the arrow fired wide. Dankworth advanced.
Which way?
Alfonso charged at a Gnoll fighter from the side to distract him, as Valentin stepped forward and cut the hyena-faced creature down. Meanwhile, El Comodin searched for treasure and found an iron-bound hunting trap. Recently triggered, its bloodied teeth showed signs of struggle. Oddly, the prints around it were humanoid. The sneaky Gnoll followed Dankworth and Rook through the trees. Dankworth fell into a sinkhole. Was it a trap or a natural occurrence in this fell wood? Felix lunged at a Gnoll, but the blow failed to penetrate the creature's armor and thick hide. It did succeed in knocking him off balance, however, and with his flashing blade, Felix decapitated the beast. He ordered Tempest to remain behind him as he taunted the remaining Gnolls. The hyena pounced at Rook, but the elf slashed the creature with his dagger. A Gnoll fighter assailed Rook, and in the frenetic melee, both took major damage. A Gnoll shot at Felix, but his magical armor temporarily blinded the archer and missed. Valentin engaged a Gnoll fighter as the savage closed in on Alfonso. The man-at-arms' help was enough to fend off the attack, and left the Gnoll with a flesh wound. The Gnoll sergeant joined the conflict, looking to add another scalp, but was killed outright by a vengeful blow from Valentin. Had the tide turned? Would Galindo survive? Meanwhile, a Gnoll archer took aim at El Comodin and felled him with a single arrow. Downed on his first foray into Redhollow, the momentum swung back and forth. Coming to Rook's rescue, Dankworth escaped from the sinkhole and launched himself at the Gnoll, finishing him off. Valentin was badly hit by a counterattack after swinging at the Gnoll, but Alfonso killed it with a vicious bite. Alfonso almost fell into a spiked trap, but spotted it in time and leapt clear. Felix, closely trailed by Tempest, charged a Gnoll archer and inflicted a heavy wound. Tempest pounced to finish off the Gnoll, but caught the archer's dagger and was downed. The archer struck back at Felix, but was expertly dispatched by the knight. The other archer fired his bow at Alfonso, but missed. The hyena snapped at Rook, but the elf archer sliced its maw with his dagger, shoved him away, and loosed an arrow from close range, piercing its heart. Prince Tavish continued to wander, seemingly oblivious of the fight going on around him. Alfonso engaged a Gnoll as Valentin attempted to strike from behind, but this time his plan failed, and Valentin was overcome by the hideous creature. The bushes parted to reveal a heavily armored figure with a snarling, bestial face. A Gnoll blackguard had arrived in the area, drawn by the barks and howls of his brethren. Felix sprinted to engage the large Gnoll. Better finish it fast to protect the wounded, he thought. Its fist was as large as his head. The last Gnoll archer fired at Alfonso, the arrow piercing his flank and flooring him. The Gnoll blackguard raced towards Felix. Two heavyweights about to clash. Dankworth intercepted the blackguard, his blade slipping past the Gnoll's defense and inflicting some damage before shoving it back. The extra space allowed Rook just enough space to shoot at the blackguard, but the arrow was deflected by a branch. Heavy rain began to fall, obscuring the view beyond a few feet. Felix, with his squire Dankworth in tow, charged at the blackguard, but came out the worst. Dankworth swung at the Gnoll, but was also cut by the enormous savage's weapon. Its slavering maw cackled down at them. Perhaps now overconfident, the blackguard swung recklessly at Felix, who calmly sidestepped and severed the gnoll's arm with his blade. It bellowed in rage, but the crazed brute fought on. The gnoll archer dashed towards the melee, while Rook, unable to shoot in the ongoing combat, explored the area and found something. It seemed for a moment that Prince Tavish was also curious. In a half-buried pouch, there was a sound like a bee. Inside was a moonlit obsidian shard, a razor-thin piece of dark glass that gleams silver only under moonlight. It vibrates faintly when danger is near. It's always buzzing within the confines of Redhollow. Rook disturbed some problematic plants. Ashmouth bloom, a squat flower which often grows in volcanic soil, has petals permanently coated in fine grey ash. When disturbed, it exhales a choking cloud of hot soot that burns lungs and blinds eyes. Rook was poisoned. The gnoll blackguard, still in shock over its lost limb, was cut down by Felix, who then moved swiftly to engage the gnoll archer before he could loose another arrow. Dankworth hurried close behind. The gnoll slashed at Felix with a dagger, but was totally outmatched by the knight and took heavy damage. Rook, racked by spasms, staggered forwards. Dankworth caught up with his master and thrust his sword at the gnoll, but was unable to pierce its thick hide. Felix brushed a problematic plant that released a soporific gas into his face and sent him into a deep slumber. Pale Mercy is an elegant white lily that grows near grave sites and battlefields. Its pollen induces a deep, dreamless sleep that lowers heart rate dangerously. Victims sometimes never wake, appearing peaceful as if gently laid to rest. Maybe the weakness of the hollow crown fungus from last mission weakened his constitution. Prince Tavish wandered off to ponder the artistry of a large elven bust. The gnoll archer swiped his dagger at Dankworth, but the blade was deflected by the squire's chainmail. Dankworth struck back, but again failed to inflict any damage. Rook lumbered on towards his companion. Another gnoll and hyena arrived, but perhaps too late. The archer stabbed at Dankworth, who dodged neatly aside before slamming his blade down on the gnoll's head. Rook fired an arrow at the advancing hyena and pierced its haunch with a yelp. Fortunately, the remaining gnoll and wounded hyena fled. Felix was safely awakened by Dankworth and Rook. He felt refreshed and energized, but his mood changed when he saw the bloody toll. Galindo and Alfonso quickly recovered from their injuries, but sadly Valentin and Alcomedin succumbed to their wounds. We all thought Braxton was as bad as the forest could get, but the quarry had proven even worse. What must the inner zones of the forest be like? Tempest lost some toes, which would slow him down in future, but he seemed tougher than ever. Prince Tavish was gone. We could only bundle our comrades and march back to Lungerford. The subject of conversation was information. We needed information.
As you can see, dark and dangerous were their adventures. We will continue to tell the story of Lords Felix and Galindo next time, as they find an ally in Tharsis the Fae. Thank you, goodbye, and come back soon for more Tales of Redhollow.